It has now been 2 years since I paid $2.5 grand for the
57-inch Samsung G9 Neo. It's pretty much the end game when it comes to the world's best monitor.
And that isn't strictly true because, well, there is still plenty of room for improvement, and especially this year we've seen some very stiff competition come out in 2025, like the LG 45-inch Ultra Gear. But I still always find myself coming back to this just 57-inch behemoth of a monitor, even 2 years later. So if you are considering buying one of these monitors, especially as they are pretty significantly discounted right now compared to when I bought it, or maybe you're just interested in what it's like to use a single super ultra wide monitor in place of multiple monitors, then stick around. Now, this isn't going to be a full review. I've made quite a few videos about this monitor already, and just all of them seem to get a lot of interest. So this is more of a summary of my experience. And the main reason why I keep coming back to this particular monitor, this 57-inch ultra-wide screen, even with its flaws, is just that I have found nothing that can replace the sheer incredibleness, which isn't the word, but the sheer incredibleness of what having basically two 4K UHD monitors side by side, but seamlessly joined with no bezel in the middle, which honestly makes it feel like you have three 4K monitors side by side. Because, you know, when you have dual or even triple screens, you lose so much screen real estate from those bezels and from apps with all their menu bars and sidebars. Whereas this single screen, and I know this looks totally dumb to, well, most people, I usually have anywhere between 10 to 15 apps open and visible on the screen at any one time, because there is just so much space.
Look at all this more space. So many activities. It's making my head spin how many activities we can do.
So if I want to check what's next on my calendar, I can just glance at my calendar, or check my emails, well, a quick look over to see if anything new's come in, or if someone's messaged me, quick glance over at my messages. There is just no constant, alt tabbing between windows. It is also neater than multiple monitors. There's less cables for power and display, and then just figuring out how many outputs you need on your machine. One single screen, one cable, well, I guess two if you include the power. Now, the only thing that you have to take into consideration here is if your desktop machine or your laptop can actually drive the resolution at the refresh rate as well. Now, I'm currently using an M4 MacBook Air. I also had my gaming PC hooked up with a 4090 previously and now a 5090, and they are all able to drive the screen at full resolution, although the MacBook Air only seems to reach 120 Hertz and not the full 240 Hertz, which still for productivity doesn't really matter so much. Now, the 57-inch ultra-wide screen is also one of the first ultra-wides where the pixel density is actually good enough where you don't notice it day to day. LG actually updated their Ultra Gear monitor this year that fixed that kind of pixel density issue, so I'm glad that's now happened. But still, on some of the older Samsung models and some of its competitors, it's still very pixelated. Now, this one is 140 pixels per inch, and basically that just means that unless you get really close and make yourself cross-eyed, that you can't see the individual pixels. Just the text looks clear and the edges look crisp. And same with the resolution. Actually, the 49-inch models have a much lower 1440p resolution, whereas the 57-inch model has a 2160 vertical resolution, which essentially is two 4K screens side by side. And so going back to what I said earlier, you can fit so much more on the screen at once whilst keeping everything sharp to read. Now, before I move on, I want to introduce you to something that started off as just another tool recommended to me by a friend, but has quickly found its place at the heart of my daily habits. Now, it's an app called Recall, who are sponsoring this video. And what Recall does is to help me capture and summarize, store, and even organize all of the information and all the content that I'm consuming into this one organized and personalized knowledge base. It's a place where I can save time by summarizing anything from YouTube videos, podcasts, PDFs, and then be able to chat and ask questions, which is especially useful when I've collected a bunch of information together, like for our upcoming Apple Buyer's Guide videos, and I can ask questions to extract just the headline information or dig deeper into the details. And it is so easy to use that using it has just become second nature, either via the browser extension or just by sharing content to the Recall mobile app, which at the touch of a button saves whatever content that I'm consuming. But it not only saves it, it summarizes it, organizes it, and even links that content with any other related content that I've saved and shows me how each topic is connected, and can even generate a quiz that tests my knowledge on what I've saved if you need that. Now, whether it is research for a video I was working on, or looking for inspiration, catching up on the latest news in my areas of interest, be that technology or fitness or finance, Recall is always there in the background, joining the dots, and honestly has become one product that I now use daily. And you can take a look for yourself at getrecall.ai with code PETE25 for 25% off. Now, in terms of gaming, my use has actually shifted in the last few months because this monitor now stays at work, so it's used like 99% of the time for day-to-day work stuff. And I've actually taken my gaming PC home, and now that lives next to my TV, which I, play Fortnite almost every evening nowadays. But when I was gaming on the 57-inch G9, it was so good. With a caveat, now you do need a PC, of course, that's powerful enough to drive such a wide monitor. And with a 5090 card, of course, that wasn't a problem, but depending on what card you have, you are going to need to do a quick bit of Googling to find out if it's capable of driving reasonable frames at the native resolution at the full 240 Hz, if that's what you want to do. Now, I actually used to do these kind of quick tests where I play a bunch of games and list out my results out of the box, with all games, maximum settings, native resolution, and without like overclocking or anything, just to give you an idea of what sort of FPS you can hit in the various games with a 5090 card. Apparently, some people think that's a bit of a dumb test to do, so I'm going to have to figure out what I should do instead to show the performance of each screen that I review in future. But that said, this screen is like the one that I see most often for things like sim racing or any like serious gaming setups, and something I'm actually still planning on doing. We've been planning it for a while, but I just haven't even gotten around to building the right rig just yet. But for gaming, the only thing that does get a bit tiresome after a while is games where they have their heads-up displays that are fixed to the far corners, and just having to like keep moving your head to the corners to check maps. But again, some games have features where you can move those closer to the center, which can help. But again, just double check the games you're playing if they have those features. But generally, like overall, colors are great. It's bright, contrasty. Black levels, of course, could be better, but that's when something like an OLED panel would come in much more handier. Only thing that kind of annoys me is the severe haloing that you get on super dark and like black screens. Now, this isn't something I notice in everyday use. It's basically when I turn the monitor on or off, or when I watch a video where the screen is pure black aside from a few specks of light, and it does look very horrible. But again, that's the kind of issue you suffer with this kind of technology, and something that an OLED panel would solve. But overall, like after 2 years of using this screen, I've not had like any technical faults. I know Samsung's QA can be a bit hit and miss at the best of times, but I've no dead pixels. I have installed a few firmware updates, but honestly, never really had any reason to install them in the first place. And I've just not noticed anything that they fixed or anything's improved or changed. It's just kind of, why not install the latest firmware? Now, as good as the 57-inch Odyssey G9 has been for the previous 2 years, there are some shortcomings which are becoming more and more obvious as time goes by. Now, the first thing is that it's obviously a very large monitor, but because it's not OLED, it is quite heavy. It actually took quite a while to find a monitor arm that's heavy duty enough to support the weight of this screen. And so for a little over a year now, I think it's been, I've been using this one from Secret Lab, which has been going strong still. It can actually hold the weight, especially when with this screen, a lot of that weight is very front heavy because of the curve on the 57-inch G9 ultra-wide, which just tends to pull down a lot on lots of the other monitor arms. And it fits to any desk. It's not just a Secret Lab desk fitting thing. So if you are looking to buy one of these screens, I can highly recommend that monitor arm as well. With that said, the only issue that I have with this is that because of the additional route for the cable management, you may then need to go and buy some longer cables, since none of the included ones for the 57-inch G9 are actually long enough to run through the cable management to, wherever you need them to go. But having said that about the size and weight of this, I really hope that they launch an OLED version of this at CES next year. That would be so cool, and obviously that would be much lighter being an OLED screen as well. Secondly, there is a white plastic cover that snaps on the back of the monitor to hide all the cables, but it is really flimsy, and the clips on mine actually snapped off very shortly after I bought it, and when I tried taking it off once, so now it just stays off all the time. So yeah, that's a bit frustrating and a bit tacky. Third, this screen doesn't have any of Samsung's smart Tizen interface, which is a good thing, kind of, because that always tends to slow the screen's like UI down, but that does also mean that there are no automatic online firmware updates. So instead, you have to manually download them and install them via a USB drive, which for a very expensive screen, kind of annoying. Although, to be fair, again, like I said earlier, I've not experienced any issues with the screen whatsoever over the time that's actually required a firmware update to fix it, but still annoying when you kind of want to just always be up to date. Fourthly, there is no USB-C, which is an obvious one for me as a Mac user or just a general laptop user. Now, right now, I have the M4 MacBook Air hooked up to it's the brand new one actually, the CowDigit TS5 dock, because it has 10 gigabit Ethernet for transferring video files. And that then also charges my laptop and lets me dock it to all of my desk accessories. So my microphone, my speakers, all the kind of usual stuff, plus the display, of course, which then gets the full resolution from the Mac, but still at 120 Hertz, not the 240 Hertz, all through a single cable on that dock. And so I guess adding to this one, that if they did expand this screen to have a Thunderbolt dock in the back of it, so I didn't need a whole docking station, that would be pretty incredible too, with a 10 gig Ethernet networking in the back would be even better. So for me, this is still an incredible screen. And especially if you can pick one up for anything close to like £1,000 or $1,000, I think I've seen it down to almost $1,500, maybe even $1,500 exactly at times. That is an incredible price to pay for an incredible monitor. But again, a lighter OLED version with USB-C would be so nice. But just keeping everything else the same, same size, same resolution, 240 Hertz, the same PPI, brightness, the curve, like all of the rest of that is amazing. So for now, if you are interested and this has helped in any ways at all, I will link to a few places down below where you can pick up this monitor. Any purchases you do make, using those links will help support this channel. And a huge thank you to everyone who has watched until the end, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, bye-bye.